G'day viewers. Well, if you're watching this, you're probably going to guess what I'm going to say. It's back. Okay? The bizarreness of the alternative theory of silver has returned. First of all, credit where credit is due. Corey Winslow has put up videos, one demonstrating things in a sort of theoretical fashion, and then hours and hours of interminable bouting and free play. And I was accused of misrepresenting what they were trying to say. And having watched all this, it's worse in true Lovecraftian fashion. The true horror of the reality is far worse than anything my imagination could have come up with. Okay, so using their video, okay, and their actions, I'm going to show you why they're completely and utterly insane. So here we have a demonstration of an attack in time of the hand. It's worth pointing out that if you were both the same height, you would be able to reach each other. But other than that, yes, it's an attack in time of the hand. Here's our version. After that, however, things get seriously bizarre. Now, the rest of the actions have two versions, a going forwards one and a going backwards one. I want to deal with the going backwards ones first. So all the going backwards ones are all basically the same idea. Okay, it is in this case, it's time of the hand and body, consisting of a swing of the sword, which completely finishes, followed by the lean back of the body as a separate action. The time of the hand, body, and foot consists of a complete swing through of the sword, followed by a slip back of the foot as, yet again, a completely separate action. Whereas the time of the hand, body, and feet consists of a complete swings through of the sword, followed by a double step backwards. So what we're seeing here is not time of the hand, body, and foot stroke feet. What we're seeing here is two completely separate actions. We have a swing in time of the hand, followed by a step backwards in time of the feet, I guess, but being that you're stepping back out of distance, it may not be a time at all, depending on the context. And what might that context be? Well, we're given two quite completely different versions of it. The first one involves an opponent who helpfully walks into your distance, into your range, without covering themselves or presenting a threat or starting an attack, just steps forward so you can hit them on the head. This allows you to swing in time of the hand and hit them on the head, at which point the action is over. The slip of the foot backwards or step backwards at that point is irrelevant because the other person is dead, and a completely different tempo, a completely different time, a completely different action. You've done a counterattack in time of the hand, followed by a step back in time of the foot. They are not the same thing as time of the hand, body, and foot. Except sometimes they are. Here we can clearly see the swing of the sword and the lean back of the body happening at the same time. Here we can clearly see the extension of the sword and the step back with the feet happening at the same time. None of which is wrong, but it is completely different to what was demonstrated, where you're doing them as two separate actions. This is one continuous action, one tempo, involving multiple body parts, which is not the same thing as what you showed earlier. But when we move on to the demonstrations moving forward, things get completely nuts. Okay, so first we see the time of the hand and body, which consists of a complete swing through with the sword, followed by a lean forward with the body as a separate action. Now seriously, what possible martial application does that have? Either you've swung and you've hit him and he's dead, or they're not dead and you're just leaning your head into their riposte. This is not the time of the hand and body. This is two separate tempos, two separate actions. It is a swing in time of the hand, followed by a lean forward in time of the body, making the second part of the action, by definition, a false time. Whereas in our version of the time of the hand and body, you're slightly out of range to hit them in time of the hand, so you move your hand and your body more or less together with your hand in front of you in order to strike like this. Now, we are here shown a martial application of the time of the hand and body, and guess what? You're doing it our way. You are swinging your sword and leaning in after it in order to strike someone who's slightly out of distance. This is different to what you demonstrated. This is not a swing of the hand followed by a lean of the body. This is a perfectly normal attack. Sword leading, the body following, everything landing at once. The same way we've been describing it for years. Now we get time of the hand, body and foot, which involves a swing with the hand, which finishes, followed by a step forward with the sword being completely absent, swinging around behind you, not protecting you at all, which is madness. Just think about this for a second. Either you're in range, your swing hits the other person, and then you step on them as they fall to the ground, or you're not in range, in which case you swing, you miss, and then you step forward to make it easier for them to hit you. It's insanity. Of course, what Silver actually means by the time of the hand, body and foot is this. The hand moves, followed by the body followed by the feet, all as one single tempo, one single action, and everything landing at once, the same way any normal attack is done. And not a complete swing of the hand followed by a step as a separate tempo. But when we see some sort of application of this supposed principle, you're just doing it our way, okay? Beating the sword aside, which is fine if they're stupid enough to leave it out there, and then stepping forward with the cut at the speed of the foot, landing everything at the same time in a perfectly normal, ordinary manner, exactly the way we describe it, and it's got nothing to do with the other weird thing that you were demonstrating. And here we come to the weirdest one of all, time of the hand, body and feet. This consists of a swing through with the sword, which is fully complete, followed by a step forward. Again, what possible martial application does this have? If you've hit him with the first swing, he's dead. And if he's not dead, you've just walked into his riposte. You've walked into his distance. It's madness. And to prove my point, you actually show it in action. You swing out of distance, miss, and then step forward into your opponent's range and get clobbered. Could it not be more clear that what you're talking about here is just utter nonsense? A few other things that are probably worth pointing out is just in general, you should never attack on this kind of advancing step, okay? A step forward with both feet is really only useful for gaining distance before you make an attack, because it makes it almost impossible to fly out after you have attacked, okay? And it's certainly nothing in Silver describes anything like this footwork, apart from the lunge, which he doesn't really like. The only piece of footwork Silver explicitly describes is the pace, which is a passing step in the normal medieval style, and the traverse, that is, walking around your opponent. Of course, what Silver really means by time of the hand, body and feet is something like this, where you start your sword moving, you step in behind it, and everything lands at once with your sword in front of you the whole way. The practical reason being is that if you step in without moving your sword first, you move into your opponent's distance and get stabbed in the face. If you move your sword first, you can stop that. So how is this alternative interpretation supposed to work? Well, honestly, I've got no idea, because this, which is supposedly it, has nothing to do with what was just demonstrated. There's no swing through of the sword followed by a step. There's a beat of an extended point, which is fine, followed by pretty well a normal attack in normal true time. So the hand is moving in front of the body, the feet follow, everything lands about the same time. Footwork aside, it's perfectly fine and normal. And of course, being a normal attack in the normal time of the hand, body and foot, and thus being made at the normal speed of the foot, if you like, certainly not speed of the hand, means that the defenders got the normal amount of time that they can react. They can step back, they can recover their sword back after the beat. In fact, because there's a beat, they've actually got a little bit more time than if you just made a direct attack. So I failed to see the relevance of this to anything except that you're attacking exactly the way we've been describing it for years. You know, I'm beginning to think I picked the wrong motif, because honestly, this is more like the HEMA version of QAnon. You have the evidence, you have created the evidence with your own hand that proves that you're wrong. What you're doing here is obviously exactly the same as this kind of action, or this kind of action, and completely and utterly different to this. And when you do this, you die. And when you do this, you live and occasionally get to hit somebody. So this is supposedly a demonstration of an attack in false times, which is weird for several reasons. First of all, it's really unco. I don't know any human beings who swing swords like that. You've got to get your hilt down, moving in a straight line like this. But it's also weird because, apart from the lack of a preparatory beat, the timing is exactly the same as what you showed in your supposed true times here. So apart from the fact that it looks a bit unco and gawky, the timing here is right. The hand is definitely moving first, followed by the body and feet. Everything lands at the target at about the same time. So why you're calling this the time of the foot when you're moving your hand, I have no idea. Likewise, here we have something called time of the foot and body, yet again, the hand is definitely moving, it's even moving first. That said, the timing here is definitely pretty dodgy. The hand should be a lot more extended, and certainly for Silver, leaning in after the foot has landed is definitely wrong. So yeah, it's a false, or at least false-ish time. And finally, the hand gets a mention. So this is time of the foot, body, and hand, and yes, it is absolutely a false time. Stepping into distance and then swinging, that is a false time. And yet, exactly what was demonstrated in the supposedly true times, where you have swung your sword through and then you step forward into your opponent's distance while your sword is still behind you in exactly this manner. So I completely failed to see the distinction between the supposed true times and the supposed false times. And I also don't know anybody who advocates doing any of this. This is obviously the exact opposite of what anybody is describing. So yes, this is a false time. Stepping forward into distance while keeping your sword back is a false time, which is also exactly what you did, supposedly doing a true time when you swing your sword through and then, as a separate action, step forward into distance without your sword in front of you. It's a false time. And this section pretty well proves my point for me, okay? So, imagining there's someone in front of you. The guy at the top has swung, presumably missed because he hasn't stepped forward into the other guy's distance yet, and then, without his sword in front of him, steps forward in order to be killed more easily. The guy at the bottom, while looking pretty unco, swings his sword in front of him, preventing a counterattack, stepping forward and lands both at the same time, presenting a credible attack, a credible threat that the defender in front of them must deal with. So, for some reason, the true times at the top, who is dead, is better than the false time at the bottom, who's alive. It's utter madness, which you admirably demonstrate in your own free play. Okay? You swing out of distance, you inevitably miss because you're not in distance, you haven't stepped forward, and then you step forward into your opponent's range with your sword behind you. It's a false time. So to be absolutely clear, you agree that stepping forwards like this without your sword in front of you is a false time. And I said before, nobody really advocates doing this. Except maybe you do. Because in the free play, over and over again, you're just walking into your opponent's distance and then acting surprised when they hit you. Okay? These are all obviously false times. As you've just demonstrated, you just agrees that this is a false time. So, why the hell are you doing it? It doesn't work and gets you killed. And if you can see that this, stepping forward without presenting your sword in front of you, is a false time, surely you can see that this is also a false time. You swing through, you miss, you've completed that action, and then you step forward in exactly the manner you have agreed is a false time.
All right, folks, let's take a break there. I'm running out of insanity points and need a stiff brandy and a good lie down before I continue. There is, however, plenty more eldritch horror to send back into the shadows, so part 2 will follow shortly.